I know from experience that arriving at a topic for a thesis or a dissertation is quite a challenge. It's not easy and it's much more difficult than just writing a research paper. Typical research paper you're familiar with is you choose a topic, you go find some articles, you think about it, you pull them all together and make your point in a paper. Well, a thesis is different from that. What you do is you think of a topic, but not out of the blue. The topic that you pursue is from a field of study or body of literature, is what researchers have been working on over time, and you're finding some gap in that literature that you're going to fill. For example, one topic that many students get interested in is the link between motivation and performance at work. All right, that's a reasonable topic in business, but then there's been lots of studies about motivation, like Maslow's hierarchy, for example, or other theories of motivation and how it impacts performance. So you have to go back and study articles about what's previously written on that, find your unique angle, propose some research questions, then think about how you would collect data in order to answer those research questions, perhaps test a hypothesis, and then arrive at new findings that add to what's been previously studied. That's the mechanics of a thesis. So when you propose a topic, you have to think about how you would actually carry out a study using that topic. For example, when I think of a topic, or someone presents a topic to me and says, "Is this a good topic?" I will ask the following questions. Okay, well, what are your research questions? Can those research questions be answerable? For example, I've seen some research questions that are about presumed events that are going to happen in the future. You can't test things that may happen in the future. So those are research questions that can't be answered. There are also some research questions that could be answered with simple yes or no questions. Those are not viable research questions for a thesis because they're too simple. So the questions must be answerable. You have to answer them by collecting data, analyzing it, and perhaps testing a hypothesis so that your research question can be answered. So it has to be complex enough that it requires a thesis. It has to be a question that could actually be answered. And it also has to be sufficiently narrow in scope that you can manage it. For example, a research question about national policy, cyber war, how enemies are going to attack us in the future, global undersea cables. I don't know, any large scale questions that are just not feasible to collect data and answer. Those are not really good questions. So think of, like, if you're going to ask me, is this topic a good one? I would walk through a checklist, and you could walk through a checklist yourself to answer it. So the question is, all right, you have a topic. Where did that topic come from? Is it out of the blue, or is it built on what's been studied previously in academic research? Okay, that's question number one in your checklist. Question number two, what are my research questions? Are these research questions complex enough that it requires a thesis? Does it go more beyond simple yes or no questions? Is it feasible? Can I even answer these questions? Is it about something in the future or about some large-scale phenomena that I can't get my arms around? Then that's no good either. Okay, so what is my topic? What are my research questions? And then what data are you going to collect and how are you going to analyze it in order to answer those research questions? And typically, one tests a hypothesis in order to answer research questions. So what is your hypothesis? Is your hypothesis falsifiable? You make a statement, you collect data, your data either supports the hypothesis or rejects the hypothesis. Okay, so can you do that? Can you write a statement for which you can collect data, analyze it, and then confirm it or reject it? And does that answer your research questions? If you can do that, how are you going to collect the data? From where are you going to collect it? How are you going to analyze it? Okay, so if you can think of all of those things, the viability of the topic, sufficiently narrow in scope, complex enough that it requires a thesis, you have clear research questions that can be answerable, You have a clear idea of where you're going to get your data, how you're going to collect it and analyze it, what hypotheses you might have. Are they written in such a way that they could be, accepted or rejected? If you can think through that and answer those questions, then you will have arrived at a viable topic, and you don't need my input on it. Of course, if you're not sure, you can ask me, and I will walk you through the same process until we can get at a viable topic. One other thing, some things are very difficult to test in life. For example, I've posted questions before about if does the use of iPads in a classroom improve student learning? Well, how do you measure improved student learning? That's difficult to measure, and educators argue about this and have studied it for years. But you could ask students, do you perceive that your learning has improved? So think about what you're trying to test. How could you test it? How could you answer that question? It may be easier to frame your study in such a way that you're asking for people's research subjects' perceptions of the topic. That's often far easier to measure than the phenomena itself, and might be an end around if you get stuck in developing a topic and research question. So that's the research update for today.